So if you we're on air. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Planning Applications Committee. We have a couple of apologies from councillors. That's Councillor Lang and Councillor Rose Williams and Councillor Robinson. So 3 apologies from councillors. We've also got present in the chamber Julie Williams, who's the planning manager, and Wendy Betterson, who's our legal advisor on planning matters, and Nikki Simpson, who's here from committee services to record the minutes. Coming in via Teams will be Steve Viger and Richard Eatoff. So at some point we will hear them from the screen. I think that's everybody. So yes, before we get onto the agenda though, I'd just like to ask Julie to make an announcement about the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to bring to your attention that the final item, item 10, Unit 4, B4, Wharton Drive, application number 211347. We are asking that this item be deferred because we're seeking further transport information from them. So that will be deferred and hopefully we'll come back to your meeting on the 3rd of November, I think it is.
Okay. Thank you very much. Which takes us on to the agenda. Minutes
Chair,
of the
could you
last
just
meeting.
mention the recording?
Copy.
Sorry.
Sorry?
You just mentioned the recording.
Oh, I'm told I need to remember to say that we are recording the meeting as we normally do. So hopefully people are aware of that. Which takes us on to the minutes. Is everybody happy with the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you. And then declaration of interest. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Just under applications for prior approval, I work for 3, which is owned by Hutch Telecommunications, that do have some applications under prior approval.
Thank you. And then we go on to questions. So, oh, sorry, Councillor Carnell.
Yes, again on item 9, the Albert Road proposal of declaring an interest in predetermination, and I'll speak as ward councillor and then abstain.
Okay, thank you for reminding us of that. Yeah, you did tell us last time. Thank you. This takes us on to questions. We have one question from Councillor Josh Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. In early December last year, this committee resolved to set up and run a new process for locally listing our heritage buildings that would allow the local community to be involved in the planning process and decisions to reside with the planning committee. Can the Chair please update us on progress made towards that new process in the last 10 months? Can the Chair also tell us how many applications for local listings are in the queue ready to be assessed once the process is up and running? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Planning Applications Committee in December 2020 considered a number of options for how to approach deciding on additions to the list of locally important buildings. Committee agreed that proposed option 2 would be done, and involving PAC decisions on individual proposals and that should form the basis of a detailed process. It was agreed that the Deputy Director of Planning, Transport and Regulatory Services would be authorised to set up that detailed process. A detailed process in line with the agreed option 2 was agreed and put in place in May 2021. In summary, there are 15 bullet points, and I'm not going to read all of those out because I think it's a very comprehensive list which we can all see in order to follow that process. Committee also agreed that an information report be brought to a future meeting of PAC detailing the process in full. This report will be brought to the meeting of PAC on the 1st of December. An outline form for members of the public, councillors or community groups to nominate buildings for inclusion on the local list is now available on the council's website, and the detail is given there. Once nominations are received, they will follow the process summarised above. There are 9 outstanding nominations for locally listed buildings, mostly nominated by the Reading Conservation Area Advisory Committee. These predate the establishment of the new process. No further nominations have been made since the new process was introduced. Officers are beginning to work through the list of nominations that had been received before the new local listing process was finalised, and they will start sending out consultations this week, that's the week of the 4th of October, on that. Following the receipt of consultation responses and due consideration, buildings will be considered for addition to the local list at a future meeting of the Planning Applications Committee.
Oh, yes, please, Chair. Thank you. Thank you very much for that detailed answer and all the bullets you didn't read, but they're all there for everyone to see. It's going to have taken a full year to bring a report back to committee on something we agreed, and it sounds as though the process was set up in May, but 5 months later, no consultations have gone out yet. Is there enough resource in the team to do this properly?
Well, as you will be aware, Councillor Williams, there's been a very difficult year for everybody in terms of COVID and all of that. And people are under pressure. We've had a number of very large applications that have needed a lot of attention. So I'm sure we'd all like a lot more resource. That goes without saying, but you know the situation that local government is in at the moment and has been for the last 10 plus years. And we have to work with the resources that we've got. However, I think we're reaching the point now where, as I say in the answer, work is now beginning so that we can get the consultations out there and start to see reports coming back to committee. Takes us on to potential site visits for committee items. Julie Williams, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've got no new recommended site visits for you to make, but I want to bring to your attention that in your minutes it's recorded on page 2 of your addenda. Was it page 9? I can't work out. I've got 2 numbers on my pack. On the list of potential site visits, we have the third one down, 210975, for the land to the rear of 215 to 219 Henley Road in Caversham. That was agreed to be a site visit for you, but in fact the application has now been withdrawn, so that can come off the list. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll get to hear about the other 2 that are outstanding when it's the appropriate committee coming up. Thank you. Anybody got any comment on site visits? No. Thank you. Takes us on to planning appeals on page 19. Julie Williams again.
Thank you, Chair. So there you have your standard report setting out the appeals that we've had received and also appeals decided. There is a report for you on one that appeared in your papers last time for 1 and 2 New Century Place, and also in your update pack there's a report on the enforcement appeal decision for land at 8 St John's Road, Caversham in Reading. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? No, in which case can we note that report? Thank you. And go on to item 6, applications for prior approval on page 25.
Thank you, Chair. Officers have nothing to add to this report. Thank you.
Any members wish to speak or make a comment? No, can we note that as well then? Thank you very much. Which takes us on to the planning applications to be considered, and unusually we don't have any public speaking tonight, so we can stick to the order. Item 7 is 39 Brunswick Hill on page 31. I believe Richard Etoff is going to introduce this over the Microsoft system. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting this on behalf of the case officer. There's no update report on this item for you. Members will be familiar with the application site at 39 Brunswick Hill, which is a detailed recent planning history as set out in the officer report on page 37 of your pack. Of most relevance is the resolution to grant planning permission for 8 flats at your meeting on the 3rd of March 2020. At the time of writing, the Section 106 agreement has not been completed, so the permission itself has not yet been issued. The host property is a large detached building dating from the turn of the last century. The current application before you is essentially an adjustment of the most recent scheme in order to provide an additional flat. This would be situated at lower ground floor level and involve a slight extension into the rear garden, bringing it level with the single story element in the last scheme, and there are other minor consequential adjustments as well. The mix is very slightly worsened, so it brings it to 22.5% family units. There is one car parking space short, but in mitigation they're also proposing an electric vehicle parking space, and cycle parking has been adjusted. Issues raised by the latest proposal are not considered overall to be so severe as to warrant officers recommending refusal of permission. Precise levels for the affordable housing contribution are not available at the time of writing, but discussions are ongoing and will build upon the basis for calculation of the similar recent resolution to approve. So that means there would be an uplift to £22,500, previously £20,000. That would be a minimum, and any deferred contribution, if viable, would be added as well. I've been in contact with the planning agent this evening, who has confirmed that all the conditions, including pre-commencement conditions contained within the officer report, are agreeable to his client. And as a result of the above, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to satisfactory completion of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Page, I think you were indicating.
Yes, Chair. Those of us who have been long-standing members of the committee will remember the various battles that we've had with regard to this site. And indeed, if you turn to page 37, you will see that there's been 30 years of attempts to demolish Brunswick Hill, 39 Brunswick Hill. During which time this committee has consistently opposed that. Those 5 applications listed there, 3 of which went to appeal over a relatively short period, all of which were dismissed by the inspector. So I think we can chalk up a fairly substantial victory for the retention of this building. That then moved to the application that we granted in March last year, which I had hoped would have been the scheme that would be taken forward for implementation. But as we've heard, the Section 106 is yet to be completed. And now we have yet another application, albeit a variation, a small variation on a theme. And I have to say, Chair, I am sceptical as to whether the applicant actually has any serious intention to carry out the works, but we have to take these things at face value. Certainly, the changes that are proposed are relatively minor and not ones that could justify a refusal. And indeed, the comments that are made in paragraph 7.6 about the design and subservient nature of the extension continuing to integrate satisfactorily, and then over on the next page, comments that the current proposal continues to preserve and respect the significance of the host non-designated heritage asset. Well, that is also the case. I think the following paragraph is important, though, about the condition, a fairly standard condition, but important here, that the submission and approval of detailed materials to ensure high quality finishes are to be used, because we do not wish to see corners cut in terms of the eventual quality of the building. The final point that Mr. Etoff referred to about the affordable housing contribution, clearly, as our local plan requires, all developments are required to contribute to affordable housing payments. The uplift here to 22,500 as a minimum is pro rata. And I'm acceptable. I think that's an acceptable way of proceeding to condition it as no less than or minimum of 22,500, subject to the final assessments. So, Chair, I hope that this is the end of a series of planning applications with regard to this site, and that we can finally see an acceptable conversion of this building, and above all the retention of what we all regard as a very important local landmark that we can take pride in having protected, and we look very much forward to the works finally taking place. So, Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation to approve, subject to that amendment regarding the affordable housing contribution.
Thank you. Not seeing anybody else indicating. Happy to second that from the chair. So unless there's anything else, can we see all those in favour of this recommendation? Thank you. And that takes us on to item 8 on page 57, which is the Meadway precinct in Honey End Lane.
Chair, can I just check with the planning officers that and the legal officer that we can put in minimum of 22.5? Yeah, I'm just checking before we move on. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. I believe Steve Viger is coming in via Teams. So good evening, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, outline planning permission is sought for the mixed-use redevelopment of the Meadway precinct, which is part of the Meadway district centre. 258 dwellings were proposed, together with a range of retail, leisure and community uses. Scale, layout, appearance and landscaping are reserved for future consideration, with only access being considered at this stage. However, the proposals do include maximum heights, width and depth parameters to ensure that any design coming forward in the future reserved matters application stage is constrained to within acceptable limits. The council received an objection today from the occupier of 103 Cockney Hill, which backs onto the Asda store car park, which is not part of the application site, which lies to the south of the application site. This email raised concerns that the neighbour was not consulted, raised concerns about the height of the buildings and that they might overlook their property, raised concerns over the number of dwellings proposed, insufficient vehicle parking and concerns about vehicle parking overspilling onto surrounding streets. In response, officers can confirm verbally that a notification letter was in fact sent to this address on the 7th of February 2020, at the same time as other neighbours, and site notices were displayed on the Honey End Lane frontage at the same time. So we are satisfied that proper publicity has been carried out. In terms of the merits of what's been objected to, certain matters relating to height, privacy and parking are satisfactorily addressed in the main report, as far as officers are aware. Just on a point of process, the agent has agreed to all pre-commencement conditions listed in draft in the summary in the main agenda, and also as amended in the update report. And in fact, an update report is included on page 7 of the update pack. This includes a number of corrections to typographical errors in the main report, together with further detail on zero carbon homes requirements. So the application is recommended for approval, subject to the recommendation on pages 57 to 62 of the main agenda, as amended by the recommendation on page 7 to 8 on the update report. And this remains subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before I ask if anybody else wants to say anything, can I just, as ward councillor here, thank Steve Viger for the huge amount of work that he's put into this. I know there's been a lot of backwards and forwards between the developer and himself, and because it's only an outline applications, there's a lot of detail yet to come, and I think this report very thoroughly outlines the issues that we will need to secure at detailed. In fact, the report should say, it says it in the update part, but just to be clear that it's only outline. But when it comes back for the full consideration, there's going to be an awful lot of detail that we're going to need to get right, and this report certainly paves the way to make sure that that happens. Just a couple of other points as well, that this application is actually lower and further away from the bank at the back of the precinct leading up to Stoneham Close. So I think efforts have been made to make sure that it doesn't impact on those homes up on Stoneham Close. It's also pleasing to see that we're going to have a legal agreement and some physical measures to stop HGVs using the access road between Victory Close and the precinct. And I'm really pleased to see that, because I think that junction there onto the Honey End Lane leading up to the traffic lights there would have been very difficult for any HGV to manoeuvre in and out of there. So very pleased to see that. There's a number of other things that I think are going to be of benefit, but overall, this precinct is so in need of an upgrade. It's been looking sad and tired for a very long time, and I welcome it and hope that the applicants actually will this time build it out. They've had agreement before to a planning application which never saw any action, and I hope this time that they do actually mean it and they will do the upgrade that's so needed in this area. Thank you. I'll then see if anybody else wants to speak. Councillor Ennis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Very much welcome this. Saying it looks tired and worn out now. I thought it looked tired and worn out when I saw the pictures when it was first built, to be honest with you. But it's been good. I mean, as a local and someone who represents the area next door to it in Southcote, residents use a precinct a lot, or certainly did when it had a good array of shops and retail. And they've been complaining for years at the way it's run down the area. The loss of retail and being run down, and the housing not really being kept up to a standard that the residents deserve. And I think it's a duty of the owners to make sure they upkeep the precinct and improve it, and very much welcome the application. Very pleased with it if it's delivered. Pleased that the housing, particularly the 30% social housing, I think, again, is very much to be welcome, particularly in that area. I would love to see local residents take advantage, those who are struggling, take advantage of the social housing if they can. Of course, you can't write that in the planning application, but that's the way it is. But it'd be great to do that, because we're not getting people shipped in from other areas. There are numerous young people and families who are stuck and would need social housing in that area, and they would welcome it. So it's very much pleased to see that. Also, the zero carbon passive house principles, good practice, definitely good. Thumbs up for that, and really welcome it. I do share the disappointment about the outline planning application. We really want some evidence, because there has been false dawns, and it's going to change, and it didn't, and it hasn't. And I think it could be a really good place to go for locals. Good fish and chip shop. I shouldn't say that, should I? But it is. And others, and I think it would really be welcome and used. The Build Back Better, getting on with the job slogans. Is it for this application, or is it just like the slogans of the Tory government, meaningless and won't be delivered? I hope not. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Devine, I think you were next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, I would like to welcome this development. It looks really to be quite the thing we need in the Meadway. As you rightly pointed out, it's looking rather dated and run down at present. I'm pleased to see, again, the affordable housing where we would like it to be in terms of 30% of the housing. I'm also quite pleased to see there's a room there for a surgery, which is quite a surprise, because nobody seems to think about surgeries these days. And I don't know whether the local NHS trust has been informed that there might be a surgery wanting some staff, but that is a bit of a problem, I think, actually getting staff to service any new surgery. I think the only worry I have is that we were talking about 258 new dwellings, and the infrastructure to support that, in terms of highways, I'm sure they'll provide some sort of solution. But I envisage rather a lot of young kids wanting school places, and I think that it might be a big problem in that area. And it's not something we can necessarily solve in the planning committee, but it does mean it's a large development, and there are likely to be, presumably, quite a number of children needing schools. But nevertheless, I absolutely welcome the development, because I think it's really is about time, and it looks to be an exciting new development for Tilehurst, or Norcourt even. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anybody else. Just in terms of the schools, I think you'll find, Councillor Devine, that we've had a programme of expanding local schools, and that's and some of the secondary schools certainly have some capacity that I know about. And obviously we need to keep an eye on that. And as you know, pupil predictions are not an exact science, because we don't quite know when the babies are going to be born. But nevertheless, there are certainly, and there's an application in for replacement for Rannoch at school as well. So there are a number of projects in the area that are improving educational facilities potentially. So, but yeah, we need to always need to keep an eye on that, and we do. I don't see anybody else, as I say. Steve, did you want to come back on anything?
No, thank you, Chair. That's fine for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see all those in favour of approving this application. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Which takes us on to what will be our last item this evening. And for people who've just arrived, item 10 has been withdrawn and will be coming back next time. So we're on item 9 now, which is the one that was deferred last month for a site visit, and that's 82 Albert Road on page 105. And I believe Richard is going to introduce, oh, Julie's going to introduce it, sorry.
Yes, Chair. I wasn't actually going to say that much. The item was introduced at your last committee, and you had public speaking on it then, and then it was requested that it be deferred for a site visit. So some of you took advantage of that to go and have a visit of the site last week. So it's now back with yourselves to now debate the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Connell, do you want to, as the ward councillor who requested the site visit, and say you're not going to take part because you're predetermined, but would you like to speak first?
Thank you, Chairman. That's very kind. I find this an interesting application. I'm not opposed to the principle of a homeowner extending their property. After all, an Englishman's home is his castle, and I can fully understand the applicant's desire to create a larger living space for his family to enjoy both their home and garden. As I said, this is an interesting proposal, as it only negatively impacts on one other property. The street scene isn't affected. The proposal is behind the existing house and garage. Neighbours on the other side are shielded by the existing property. But one neighbour will have a view of over a 5-foot garden wall of a further 5 foot of brickwork, broken only by 3 small windows. Not the most attractive of backdrops when enjoying their garden. Searching the internet shows constructions similar in height, scale and design are more municipal type buildings. The planning guidelines and local plan are in place to ensure developments are suitable for their environment. And just as the local plan should protect the people of Reading, the many, it should also protect the few when applications impact only on one property. EN6, new development in a historic context, Part A talks of the development to the existing historic townscape, scale, height and mass. I realise the application isn't in a conservation area, but the policy doesn't say it need be. But the applicant's house and neighbouring properties are all of a certain maturity. I believe this application fails on this policy on the grounds of scale and height. Over 10 foot high does seem high for what is fundamentally a single-storey extension, and a virtually blank brick wall does lack much architectural interest. And for this reason, I would urge you to reject this proposal in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Josh Williams, you're next, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. With your permission, can I ask a question of officers?
Of course.
Thank you very much. Actually, first, thank you very much for the site visit. Thank you to the officer that came along with us, and to both the applicant and neighbours who welcomed us into their home and garden and let us look at the site. So I'm very grateful for that. My question to officers is the SPD design guide to house extensions says that under rear extensions 7.1 that a rear extension would not likely be supported if it does not complement the existing dwelling. For example, a proposal for a flat roof extension where a pitched roof extension would better serve the character and appearance of the dwelling. So my question is, in this case, officers are recommending approval, but why does this flat roof extension seem okay where the SPD suggests that a pitched roof extension might be preferable if it served the character and appearance more? Is that question clear? Why is a flat roof okay in this instance?
Julie Williams, thank you.
I wasn't expecting this question. Well, every site you have to consider on its merit. So although the SPD is there to give guidance, it can't be prescriptive that on every site this is what you'll have to do. And so the officer has visited the site and looked at their proposed design and determined that in this case a flat roof design as shown with the detailing, etc., would be acceptable in this context. You do see an awful lot of older buildings, older style buildings like this with quite modern additions to them, flat roof rear extensions that can work because they don't try to compete with the pitch of the roof. Sometimes when you have too many pitches, it can look a bit too forced. And I think in some respects, the view was taken that the more simplistic design would work equally well here.
Thank you very much. Can I consider that for a minute and maybe come back? I think another couple of councillors will probably speak first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I appreciate the officer's work on the application, and also for the opportunity for us to go out and visit the site and actually be shown the interiors and the back gardens of both homes in the process. So the situation is simply that there are a wide variety of designs that are acceptable, or that are throughout the neighborhood, from modern to pitched roof, gabled ends, all kinds of makeup. And I would draw colleagues' attention to page 111 and the photo there of the house at number 80, which is right next to 82, which is the application site. And note a squared flat roof extending up double height, which is essentially the same footprint that we are looking to be put on the extension at 82, but on a single level flat roof. So that's an interesting observation, because this was an allowed extension. It's flat. It's not gabled. It's not a slanted roof or anything like that. And that was recently allowed. I'd also like to draw colleagues' attentions to the bottom photo on page 112, which shows an extension right next to next to 84. This is at 84A, and where you've got a slanted roof right there, which the objectors found to be much more pleasing. So in the consideration of what is actually allowable there, what is an extreme footprint or anything like that, the footprint is to be expected. The footprint is something that is going to allow the family to extend the room that with the double doors that you can see at the picture of 111 straight on out, and would actually become as high with the finished parapet of that little wire that you see going above that, and no higher, just to allow for the flat roof and the parapet. The design is of their own decision, and the modification to include some higher windows facing the boundary wall so that it is not disruptive. They have made other considerations with the interior of the design. They've also changed the wall materials to a red brick finish at the request of the objectors. So in all considerations, except for, well, basically in all considerations, I think the applicant feels like they have gone to the level that they should have to try to accommodate the neighbor. So essentially what we're coming down to is the explanation that we have in 6.4 from the planning officer, which basically states that the privacy and overlooking and the visual dominance and overbearing effects of the development are not in the extreme. The noise and disturbance will actually be mitigated because the main doors that they want to use, which would go straight out into their garden, will not be on the side, and you won't hear what they have are a couple of young children quite as much too. So the officer has set out a rather logical explanation to where this is actually a reasonably sized development and it is not overbearing. What we're looking at is, I believe, the objector that would actually is not keen with the flat roof, does not like the flat roof design, and during the visit actually showed us around to the 84A that I pointed out to colleagues at the bottom of page 112, stating that that slanted roof type of look would have suited them much better. Sadly, this is not really a case where you can design your neighbor's property. To be quite honest, this is a difference of design desire, and I believe the applicant has gone as far as they could. I know that they even considered putting in a slanted roof, but it would not work really well with the structure of what they were trying to achieve. And unfortunately, again, we do not get to dictate what our neighbors can build. And I believe that the case was reasonably made during the site visit that this is not going to be exceedingly overbearing. And I am going to agree with the officer's recommendation to grant the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stamford-Beale, you were indicating.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to draw councillors to photograph number 4, part of the existing side elevation. So that's currently got 3 windows on the side of the property, which directly overlook the objector's garden room. So at the moment, there's actually very little privacy from the neighbours. And by having the extension built with only 3 high-level windows, which it won't be possible for anybody to look out of, they'll just be there for ventilation and for letting in natural daylight, the objectors would actually have more privacy than they currently have from house number 82. And it is a pretty standard, full width kitchen, garden room that most people desire to have. And we have many of these in Caversham Heights. So I can see no reason why we should be refusing the application. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, did you want to come back again because nobody else is indicating?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Having visited and given this some thought, and thank you for the officer advice, I think that a pitched roof extension or a pitched leading to flat would better serve the character and appearance of the dwelling and of the area. So if I'm following the advice in the SPD, I think that this should be rejected. It rather sounds as though well, as the ward councillor has recused himself, it rather sounds as though I'm in a minority of one. So I should just state my opinion that I think on balance, my recommendation would be to refuse this based on the flat roof, not on the size. And as everyone else is going to vote to approve, then I shall be quiet now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything that you wanted to come? Do you want to come back on anything?
Yeah, I've been dwelling on your question about it as well, but I actually think if you look at the size, the footprint of this building, if they were to try and put on a pitched roof that would actually work, a proper pitched roof, they would end up probably obscuring the windows on the main building in terms of the pitch, etc. And I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect from looking at the picture of the one at 84A, was it the one with the, that I don't know, I'd have to check the plans, but I suspect that's maybe a mock pitch, and that behind, almost like you have these mock pitches and then behind it is flat, because I don't think they can, they wouldn't be able to actually do a proper pitch roof. So, so I suppose, from one view it looks okay, but it's I think it's a bit of a lame device to try and disguise it. And I actually personally think you may as well do a good flat roof design rather than to create a mock pitch to try and disguise it. So anyway, I don't know if that helps, but had time to think about it too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to those of you who were able to go on the site visit. Unfortunately, I wasn't in Reading last week, so I couldn't, but report backs from people who were able to go. Can I see all those who are in favour of granting this application? And all those who are against? And those who are not taking part in the vote. Thank you. So that application is agreed. Thank you very much. And that's the end of our agenda this evening. Won't always be as quick as this. Thank you very much.